Right guys, as you can see we're all set up. What we're going to do is we're going to flush the machine. This video will actually work for a T7, a T9 and a T11 because they're all high boys. All the controls are the same, pressure, everything else is the same. The only thing that's different is the size of the motor. So this video will actually work across the board. The reason we want to flush it is because when it's come from the factory, it's got all the packing oils and cleaning agents still within the machine. We need to get those out. So when we actually start spraying with paint, it's clear paint, we get no contaminants. The way we do that is just have two buckets. An empty bucket and a bucket with clean water, and all we're going to do is flush. Once we've flushed it, you'll actually see all the packing oils and everything else on top of the water. We ran probably about 5 litres of water. Don't take long and you know it's all good. What we're also going to do is we're going to run it through the hose, but we're also going to make sure that all the connections that we've done between the gauge, the whip hose and the gun are tight, and we'll show you how to do that as well. We want to make sure that under full pressure at 3,300 psi, all the connections and everything are nice and tight. So when you actually start spraying, we're safe. Cool, so let's start. We've plugged it in, okay, so it's all plugged in. We're going to turn on the power, then we're just going to increase the pressure a little bit just to make sure that obviously it's all working as it should do. As you can see, we've got power and the motor's working, so that's all good. So what we're going to do is tilt it back, put the bucket of water under, and then we're going to explain how the principles of flushing actually works. So, easiest way is put your foot either on the wheel or just on the back axle. Just tilt it back. Right, so what we need to do is we need to get the dump tube into the empty bucket. Okay, so what we do is we just put a little bit of pressure under it and it'll pop off. There we go. Take it back round this side and just drop it in the bucket. When obviously you're priming and flushing, it's always better to be down at the machine because you want to be able to do a few things. One, you want to be able to obviously control the pressure, the prime valve, see obviously the pressure, and get to the dump hose and the gun. So I find it just easier. Get down on your knees so you can actually get to everything nice and simple. So what we've done is we've taken the intake tube, which is the big one, into the water. That's going to suck the water up through the manifold filter and down through the dump tube. This is the most important part of the machine. This is your prime valve. The best thing about the Tritech is the fact that it's quite clear. It's got an arrow and it's actually pointed. When it's down, it's in the dump position. We use the terminology dump, okay, because you're going to dump the water, dump the paint, dump the pressure. When you flick it, it clicks. That's in line. So that's in line with the gauge, the hose and the gun. So that means that the water, the paint is going to go to the gun. So when we're flushing for the first time, we want to be in the down position because we want to pull the water up through the block, the manifold filter, and just out into the bucket. So that's obviously going to come out via the dump tube. So let's do this. So the first thing we do is hold the dump tube. Okay, what we're going to do is just start to get water and then we'll just drop it in here. We ensure that the prime valve is obviously, like I say, in the dump position, and then what we're going to do is just gently increase the pressure probably till about 10, 11 o'clock here, just on the dial. Water will start to come out of this in a second. As you can see, when the water comes out, you can see the oils straight away coming out. And we'll carry on doing this, for a good few minutes. One thing you'll notice, no matter how much I increase the pressure whilst in the dump position, the gauge just will not go up, okay? It's because the tube is actually open. All it's doing is circulating the water all the way through. So don't panic. If you suddenly have got it in the dump position and you increase the pressure and the pressure gauge doesn't go up, it never will in the dump position. I'll just show you. The pressure will only go up when it's actually in line. So now what we've done is obviously run quite a bit of water through to get the first lot of oils out. At the moment, this hose is what we call dry. It's just full of air. So what we're going to do is blast it all through with water, and then we're going to actually check that we've got no leakage on any of the connections. So the first thing you need to do is just remove the tip. We never clean or flush with the tip in, you just wear the tip down and it makes it really, really slow. We'll remove the guard as well, so that obviously we can see the water coming out. And let's just lift the trigger lock. What we need to do is make sure that the prime valve is obviously in line position, so it's going to come to the gun. We're going to put this over the bucket, pull the trigger, and then increase the pressure. There's going to be a period of time where you think nothing's happening. You've got to get the air out first. So for a good few seconds, probably about 20 seconds, nothing will happen. Then water will start to come through. We drop the pressure first, and then we let go of the trigger. So what we've done is we've obviously got water in the hose and the gun, we've got the packing oils out. Now what we want to do is check all the connections are nice and tight. So what we do is we put the gun and the connections for the whip hose away from us. And what we're going to do is turn the bucket to the side so that if anything drops, you will actually see it on the floor. You don't want to be anywhere near it, you just want it out of the way. Then you just want to gently increase the pressure up, up. And you will see it go up on the gauge. You want to get it up to 3,300, full pressure. And you want to make sure that you've got no leaks. So let's do that now. So we still want it in line because we now want to build pressure within the system to see if we've actually got all the connections nice and tight. So that's about just over 500 psi. Let's go up to 1,000. Everything looks good so far. 1,500. 2,000. 3,000. 3,300, that's full. So as we can see, we've got no leakage under the gauge. If we just move this, okay, there's no water on the floor where the gun or the connections are. So that's brilliant. That means that we've actually tightened everything up nice and good. So now what we do is we turn the pressure down. But if you notice, when I turn the pressure down, the pressure on the gauge will not change. A lot of people don't understand this part. Okay, this increases the pressure. Yes, it decreases the pressure, but the machine itself is under pressure still. The only way to release the pressure, ideally, is through the prime valve. What you're going to do is you're going to dump the pressure out of the dump hose. So I'm just going to push it down gently and you'll see. Okay, so your machine is set up. It's primed, it's flushed. All the connections are good. We can now start thinking about actually priming it up with paint and just get spraying. So what we want to do is we want to get the water out and replace it with paint. Okay, so firstly, obviously we're priming the machine. You always need to prime the machine, then prime the hose. Clean the machine, then the hose. Always the machine first, then the hose. It's the way it works. So first things, obviously, down in the prime position. What I'm going to do is hold the dump tube against the side of the tub and gently increase the pressure. Let's do it. Clearly there you can see how it's changed in viscosity. Granted, it's gone from clear water to paint, but it's not always the case. What I then do is pull this tub closer and I drop the dump hose actually in the paint, okay, and I run it for about 10 seconds. So now the next thing we need to do is get the water out of the hose. Same principle. What we're going to do is turn it in line. This is what you don't do. Okay, so we've increased the pressure. And the problem is that you're going to not be paying attention. You're going to be in a customer's house. You're going to lean over to flush out the water, pull the trigger, and it's going to be like a shotgun. It's going to hit the paint and the water, and it's just going to go everywhere. It's going to cover you, it's going to cover your machine, the floor, and if you're not careful, the customer. It's something you'll do a few times until you realise that this is the prime valve. It's a valve. So what you do is drop this down. As you can see, again, it hasn't dropped the pressure. Gently release the pressure all the way down. Okay, turn it back. This time, what you're going to do is release the trigger lock, put the gun over the bucket, pull the trigger first, and then increase the pressure. What you do is come over to this bucket, pull the trigger gently, increase the pressure. And again, we do that for about 10 seconds. We just want to make sure that, like I said, the last bit of water that was in the hose is now in that bucket of paint. Guys, get familiar with two things more than anything, the control and the prime valve. Once you've got those two sussed, everything else is pretty straightforward.